This lecture is in continuation with the first part of dramaturgy, the concept given by Goffman, where I have discussed about the stages and what is dramaturgy and its origin. Here in this lecture, we'll be discussing about some other concepts related to dramaturgy like impression management, civil inattention, sign vehicles. So let's begin. First, civil inattention. Civil inattention can be something that we can call as opening. Okay, if you remember, we have discussed about the two types of attention, that is unfocused, where we do not get engaged in a conversation, and focused, where we eventually get mingled in a conversation. So civil attention is a kind of unfocused attention where there is an eye contact, but it is ambiguous. That means if you're looking at someone from far off, you cannot understand if you know that person, if you remember that person, if that person wants to talk to you, if that person has seen you. So, the signal or the cue that you are giving and they are giving you is ambiguous. It is not very clear. How are these signals being given? By facial expressions, by body language, and by gestures. And how do we understand this? That what they are saying, these signals, they have been internalized in all the individuals by socialization. Okay? And if they respond, if you're looking at someone from the corner of your eye and they also happen to look at you and eventually they respond, then it gets converted into direct focus interaction. Otherwise, if it is just a glance, it is just an eye contact and you start looking away, then it is civil inattention. Next concept is impression management. Impression management is nothing but what we do a lot of times in our daily lives. Here we manage our forms of expressions. For example, it is our body's natural way. When we pretend that we are very happy to see someone, or that when we say, "What a surprise, we are meeting after so long, I've been thinking about you," and whatnot. But expressions say otherwise. Maybe you're not so happy as you are showing or as you are pretending. Okay, so this is what is impression management. And the person will understand this. How the person understands this? Because you live in a world where the experiences are shared, the same experience they have experienced before. Maybe they pretended, or maybe someone other pretended and they got to know about it. So impression management is very important when there is a face-to-face interaction. This is how even teachers understand the students are not paying attention or are getting bored by their expressions. Maybe they are saying that, yes, we are understanding everything. Whenever the teacher asks, "Are you getting my point?" the students always say yes. But their expressions may be saying otherwise. So this is how the teacher can understand. The next concept is about markers or brackets. You must have seen, if there is a get together, if there's a party, there are a lot of small groups in that one party or that one get together. What happens? Markers are the recognized devices that people use. What is this device? When there are small groups in a gathering, you understand that they are talking about something private. They are talking about something that they all have certain interest or participation in. Okay? And when you look at them closely, they all are looking at each other, and it is a kind of a circle or a semicircle, and it gives a clear indication that others are not a part of it. It is our own private circle, and others are not welcome. So, others definitely feel like an outsider. Okay, this is what is markers or brackets. So, they mark their territory, kind of. This is an example. They mark it that you are not welcome inside this group, please stay outside. And if at all the person does not understand, if the outsider does not understand, and if they happen to walk into that circle or that semicircle, what happens? The topic changes because they were not welcomed here in the first place. Coming to the next concept of acting according to the role. You must have noticed in the contemporary society that we live in today, if you're living in an apartment and you enter the lift, even when you see your neighbor, you will not try to indulge in a conversation. You may just give a smile or a greeting, but you will not try to be directly involved. Why? Because this is what we know, that our role is in the lift, in the escalator, in the elevators, in public settings, in airplanes. We usually do not get involved in conversations because we know that our role here is not to get engaged in a conversation. We know how to behave in various settings and contexts. This is again impression management. Even when we want to indulge in a conversation, maybe the person sitting next to me in an airplane is very interesting, or maybe is reading a very interesting book. So, although I want to indulge in a conversation, but I would refrain myself because in that setting, in that context, I know that I have to behave in a certain way. My act should be according to the role I have, and my role is only of a co passenger. The other aspect here is the master status. When we talk about master status, it gets a hint of macro social order. Okay, where in the other examples that we have discussed, they were related to micro social order, but here we talk about master status. What happens? There are very many dominant forms of social status and status order in a class based society. You know how in many societies the women are told that by the virtue of being a woman, there are a lot of things that you should not do, and there are a lot of things that you should do. So, this there are a lot of unstated assumptions, and there is a clear definition. Everything is defined that how the interaction should be and with who. The categories here can be on the basis of class, on the basis of nationality, gender that we just discussed, and age also. When our parents tell that you should not interfere when two adults are talking, so even when you know that they are wrong, you will not get indulged in that conversation. Why? Because the master status tells you that no, you are not allowed to speak here. Okay, a wife may not be allowed to speak up. Why? Because of the master status, that yes, because you are a woman, you are not allowed to speak in the house, you are not allowed to have a say. Moving ahead, next concept is teamwork setting. Teamwork setting is another example of impression management. A very typical example can be if you have a fight with your sibling, if a husband and wife have a fight, or if two friends have a fight. What happens? Internally, you are angry on each other. But if you are in a social setting or a formal setting, and you happen to be in a fight during that, you will pretend. Okay, this is your impression management. You will pretend that you're okay, that everything is fine, and you will also use some props to make that act, the whole drama that you're creating, so that it looks more real. What can be the props? For example, if a husband and wife have a fight, the husband may give a flower to the wife in front of others, so that others believe that everything is fine and they do not have a fight. Now, coming to time and space perspective, which is very important when we talk about a conversation, or what happens when we indulge in a conversation with others. There is an aspect of personal space. Okay, what is personal space? By definition, the area immediately around the body that a person claims as his or her own. That is, the area around my body is my personal space. Now, the concept of personal space varies with the societies. In Western cultures, they do not have a concept where they have to maintain physical distance, because it is very common for them to be in close proximity with each other. Whereas in some different cultures, we maintain some space. Why? By the virtue of our culture, we've been told that you should have at least this much distance. It also varies with what kind of relationship you have with others. If you're meeting a stranger for the first time, you will not be in a very close proximity because you're not comfortable. On the other hand, if you're with your family, with your friends, you will be in a close proximity with each other. This is how the time and space perspective functions. Now, the last concept that we are going to discuss with dramaturgy is the 7 requirements for a performance. So, we have already discussed about all of this. These are just the terms that you have to remember for the exams. First is belief. You have to make them believe that you are acting your role. Second is mask, making impression management, realization, idealization, maintenance, misrepresentation, which is again a form of impression management only, and we do this by the help of sign vehicles, and mystification, keeping secrets, that we do how we just studied about this, that we did this when we try to hide something and we use props in order to make believe others. Let us discuss some questions now. When a grandfather tells his grandson that children should not speak among elders, this is an example of master status where there are defined guidelines given which are shared in the society, and by the virtue of that the child has been directed that you should not speak when elders are speaking. Question number 2. The desire to manipulate others' impressions of us on the front stage is called when we manipulate others' impression of us. That means when I am trying to show something that I am not in the front stage, that is in a social setting. What am I doing? I am doing something that is called as impression management. I am showing something different than what reality is. I hope you got the lecture. Thank you for watching.